our final inductee, it's kind of special to me. I told him this last night. I'm sure he heard this kind of stuff all the time. I was 40 years in broadcasting, and in those 40 years, I covered the NBA at different levels. Began my career up in Erie, Pennsylvania. I used to make the drive over to the old Richfield Coliseum for Cavs games, and then 15 years with CNN, 5 with Fox, and then a total of 17 years either with the Denver Nuggets or the Atlanta Hawks. So growing up a huge basketball fan, as you can tell, I'm slightly tall, so I played the sport a lot growing up with a lot of people. Didn't have half the talent of Billy Knight's left knee, let alone his whole body. But I loved the sport. And when I was growing up, I had 3 favorite players. Another Laker great who was born and raised and started at West Virginia, the great Jerry West, who unfortunately left us not that long ago. Dr. J, because who didn't love Julius Erving? And the other one was a man named Rudy Tomjanovich, because when I saw the back of his jersey, I said, that guy's got an itch at the end of his name. I love that guy. Rudy Tomjanovich was a star basketball player at the University of Michigan, earning All-American and all Big Ten honors in his 3 years with the Wolverines. He's still in the top 6 overall for scoring and top 3 for rebounding, all time at Michigan. Second overall pick in the NBA draft by the Rockets, spent all 11 seasons playing in the NBA with that organization, made 5 trips to the All-Star game. And even now, he is still 4th on the all-time scoring list for the Houston Rockets. Rudy had his number retired at both his alma mater, Michigan, and with the Rockets franchise. After his playing days were over, Rudy went on to coaching. Late in his career, had success with the Olympic team, won the gold medal at the Sydney Games in Australia, but he really made his mark down in Houston. Took over the Rockets midway through the 92 season. They're struggling. They just missed the playoffs. The next year, they won the Midwest Division. He became the first coach to take a team that was in the lottery one year and in his first full season make the playoffs. The very next year, the first of 2 back-to-back world championships. Second one's always harder to get because everybody's gunning for you. So they didn't have quite as high a seed the second year, but they still won it. As a matter of fact, on that playoff run, they were the first team to beat the top 4 regular season records on their way to the title. First time that has ever done it. Matter of fact, he was the first coach to take that lottery team to the playoffs a couple of years earlier than that. I called a member of that franchise. I said, Clyde the Glide Drexler, Hall of Famer, give me a story about Rudy T. He said, Jerome, when you play for Rudy Tomjanovich, it's like playing in basketball heaven. The ultimate player's coach. Even when we scuffled, which we didn't do often, always had a smile on his face, always picked up the team. He said Rudy was an all-star player and a championship coach because he's an all-star human being. And those of us who have got to know him the last couple of years a couple of days can agree with that. Clyde just went on and on and on, but I got a little more than 99 seconds, so I want to say this. Rudy's career 503 wins and 559 winning percentage remain Houston Rockets franchise records. Because of his coaching, his playing, the gold medal, he's in the Basketball Hall of Fame. I'll end my introduction with this. After that second championship, on the court, the announcer runs out there doing interviews, and remember, they were a low seed, but they still won the title. Rudy had that famous quote, "Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion." I say don't ever underestimate a good Croatian either. Ladies and gentlemen, Rudy T.
Thank you very much. My butt was falling asleep. I am truly honored to be a part of this really great award. And congratulations to all the other recipients. Usually at something like this, I would name all the people who have helped me be a success, and there are many, but I have already talked to them personally and thanked them, and they know how much I appreciate them. Today I want to talk about, since this is a Croatian event, I want to talk about a wonderful Croatian that helped me when I was a young man, and that is my Uncle Joe. Joe Modich. When I was young, he taught me all the sports. And we were poor. We couldn't afford anything, and he bought me the equipment, the bat, the ball, the spikes, and he was there every weekend to practice with me. He was a very caring, giving person, and he gave me some wonderful, important advice. He says, I'm going to be honest with you. To be successful, to have a good life, you have to go to college. But the truth is, your family has no money, and the only way you're going to do it is you're going to have to earn a scholarship by keeping good grades or playing a sport very well. So he gave me that plan. His son, Mark Modich, was a member of the 1959 World Championship Little League team that played in Williamsport. And my town was only 1 square mile in the middle of Detroit. And it was a big time deal. They wound up on the Ed Sullivan Show, 12 years old. They danced with the pretty girls on the Lawrence Welk Hour. And he was only 12, and all this praise would put upon him, and it was amazing. He never got cocky. He remained humble. He became my hero and my role model. So I tried to follow his lead in baseball, and I was pretty good. I was an all-star, but I ran into a sarcastic coach who loved to belittle his players. And that tactic just didn't work with me, so I hated going to the ballpark. I actually used to pray for rain so I didn't have to go. So I go to Uncle Joe, and I tell him I'm thinking of quitting baseball. And he says, absolutely not. You made a commitment, you got to stick to your commitment. And, I reluctantly went back, but he secretly observed what was happening at the ballpark, and he came to me and he said, you shouldn't have to put up with that nonsense. So he says, I'm going to get you on another team. And I says, I don't love baseball. He said, but what about our plan to get to college? I said, I'm going to play basketball. He said, Rudy, you're an all-star in baseball. You sit on the bench in basketball. I said, but I love it. I really love it. And he thought I was crazy. The truth is, I did sit on the bench in basketball. In junior high, I was on the team, and I never played 1 minute. And a friend of mine who was bigger than me played all the minutes, and he never beat me once in one-on-one. And it was torture sitting on the bench watching him play, and I knew I wasn't getting in the game. And once in a while, he would tease me, and I'd say, get over here, and I'd whoop his butt. Excuse me, I'm old. All I thought about was basketball 24 hours a day. In fact, I carved into my bed, I love basketball. And I put my hand out and I went to bed dreaming that one day I would be a basketball player who got into the game. I did get the scholarship to University of Michigan, but my career was not a smooth one. I had to face a lot of trials and tribulations. My first year in the NBA, they called me a first-round flop. But I turned that around and made the all-star team 5 times. When I was a coach, when I was a coach, we lost 2 home games in the playoffs when we were up by 20 points. And the next day in the paper, with letters this big, choke city, that we choked, and we turned that around and won the championship. In basketball, I got criticized way worse than that guy who was in baseball, but I never thought about quitting because I love the game. And when I use the word love, I'm not talking about just this feeling. I'm talking about a way of life. When you cherish something, you want to keep it, you want to protect it, and you want to make it better. And it takes hours and hours of hard physical work, but it also takes mental work. And and then you got to practice over and over the things you learn. I stand before you very grateful that God put these great players, these great coaches, and a great uncle in my life, and they helped me to have a life beyond my wildest dreams. In closing, I want to tell you that I haven't had a lot of contact with Croatian people. Both of my parents were Croatian. They met in a factory in Detroit, but we didn't know other Croatian people, so I don't know much about the customs and traditions. But I have to thank Ed Pezos for an awesome educational tour of this great museum and the beautiful artwork and a lot of the history, and Lisa and I really enjoyed that. But when I was playing, I always thought I got to find out more about what it means to be a Croatian, and I coached a Croatian player, and he said, "I think you're from Brač." And when I would tell somebody that, they'd go, it was very positive. "Oh, beautiful, really beautiful." And I liked that, and I was proud, but I have never been there. So I befriended a reporter, and he said, "You know what, I'm gonna go and find out where your people are from." And when I saw him again, he says, I have news. You are not from Brač." I said, "Really?" He says, "You're from Krivi Put." I said, "That sounds weird, man." He says, the translation is wrong way. I'm from wrong way, Croatia. And he said, there's another translation, and it's Crooked Road. So when I said Krivi Put to people, the reaction was like a frown, like, where? And I have to admit, I was disappointed. So I got the opportunity with a friend to drive up a crooked road into the mountains in Croatia and go to Krivi Put. And my friend could translate. And up there, we ran into Maria Tomjanovich. She was 5 feet tall. She had married a Tomjanovich man. Unfortunately, he and his son were killed in the war. And when we heard that, we gave our condolences, and the mood was down, but she wasn't down. She jumped up and started to walk out of the house quickly, and she led us down the road, and she pointed into a valley, which was a cemetery. And in that cemetery, and it had been snowing, in that cemetery were these gigantic black granite gravestones. And there were no footprints, and it was a beautiful sight as we were looking down. And I'm just like in awe. All of a sudden, she starts running. And she goes down there, but the snow drifts are so big, and she's only that tall, she's struggling in the snow. So I see this, I pick her up, and I take her to where she wants to go, and she starts brushing two of these gravestones off, getting the snow off of it, and it shows her husband and her son. And I looked into her face, and I did not need a translator. I saw what Croatian love and pride was that day. And now I am not ashamed to be from Krivi Put. Thank you.